Hello everybody, I'm SJM. Welcome back to episode 5 of our, well, let's just call it a Let's Play from now on. Because, yeah, we're not really so much into the tips and tricks as I'm pretty much learning as much as I'm teaching at this point. So, we're going to start off this episode by checking out the first couple of mines that I've done, now that I've got a fair amount of resources gathered up. So this is my silver mine. Had to go down quite far before I actually found it, and ended up starting in here. There was a bit of a cave, and then I explored around in the cave system, then shored it up all before starting my mining down here. I'll show you how I do my support system. So I started my support going in this way, and then I started a support going this way. As I dug in this way, I found out that all of the silver was in this area here. So as I came over this way, I came over 8 blocks to here, and then set up the other one here, right? Because each of these support tops goes 8 in each or 4 in each direction, a 5 by 5 by 5. And we've got a little place to farm zombies, and I killed a spider earlier as well, but we're actually level 1 now in Minecraft levels. But we can actually crouch underneath these support beams, whereas the monsters can't get in through there. But yeah, the water is a little bit of a nuisance trying to dig in and around here, so thankfully I don't need tons and tons of silver, but this is kind of what the this area turned out to be. And I'll bring you back at the other at my other mine where I've got a little bit different of a setup going on. Here we are at my sphalerite mine, which has spiders, and this big huge blueberry bush here, which was it had fruited, so I got a whole bunch of blueberries off of it. But now that we're kind of really close to, well, we're not even really close. We've still got a full another month, right? November 1st is the first day of winter, but happy birthday, Dunk, I guess, being October 1st, but yeah. At any rate, down here at the silver mine, I just kind of left all my supports up in various directions because I still can't figure out which way the vein is actually going, but got supports going this way, this way, this way, that way, every way. So just a central point going out in all the directions. That direction there I blocked off because there was there's another big underwater cave. As you can see on the map there, it's all blue in that direction there. So that was that. And the only thing I haven't really risked is going down any further, but all we have to do is kind of maybe dig down another 4, turn all of these into what we want for our support floor to like the smooth version. If we just use our chisel and make them smooth, then they won't be subject to the cave-in because they'll be supporting rocks, and we can actually just dig underneath them at that point there. So that's the plan going forward. And the keen eyes of you may have seen that zombie that I killed dropped me some pants. So I actually get iron pants. That's amazing. Really good find, because that's going to take a long time before we get to any iron gear in the future there. So, and I did try to kind of dig down a little bit of a tunnel to try and get to that spider spawner, but haven't been able to figure it out just yet, so we'll get there eventually, just not quite yet. And I do have a boat now, which makes going up and down this river system a lot better, because swimming against the current is a massive pain in the butt. You can do it, it's just you have to kind of figure out that you need to be on the surface and you need to be like on the side of the riverbank instead of like straight down the middle. Where's my, oh, it's way down here. Came way too far out on this side. I just got a little marker here where I can get up and down from the riverbank if I don't feel like jumping it, but usually just jump it. But I've got a ladder system for getting up when I take the river flow down. So we'll head back to the base and we'll bring you back there. Today we'll be talking about anvils and working metals and welding, I guess, is the big one for this episode. So bring you back there in a few minutes. So here we are back home again. As you can see, I have done a significant amount of mining just to build up on my resources. I think if worse comes to worse at the winter time, if I can't get my insulated clothing all figured out, then at the very least we'll have some busy work to do around to stay close by the base, because the charcoal pits will warm us up. You can see your kind of overall heat level by this triangle in the middle. So right now it's pointed down, which means my temperature is going down, but it's not its particular color. I think when it gets blue, then that'll mean we're in danger of getting cold. And when it gets orangish and reddish, then that's in the heating zone. In my test world, I stood by a forge for ever and ever because I wanted to try and melt down an anvil, which took forever and ever. And yeah, that was when I discovered that, you know, if you do get too cold or too hot, then you will definitely start taking damage. I think it's along the same as hunger, where you can actually lose health if you get too hungry, but the hunger won't actually kill you at the end of the day, so that's not too bad in that direction. So for anvils, the first anvil that we're going to be making is a stone anvil. And then on a stone anvil, you'll only be able to weld together metals of copper grade. Once you get a copper anvil, because you need double ingots of copper to make a copper anvil, then you can work copper and make tools out of copper if you want, or you can weld together bronze, because bronze is the next tier. So we're definitely going to need to get a copper anvil before we can move forward with getting the next levels of before we can start welding together the bronze so that we can make a bronze anvil, so that we can actually make bronze tools on the anvil instead of forming them. Although I think still, with how tricky the anvil game is, that we're going to probably want to just stick with not like using the casts instead of actually making the tools with the anvil. So we'll just go here, we'll grab out a piece of raw basalt. We're going to put this down somewhere close to our charcoal forge here. Now let's look in here, entry index anvils. So as we're going in here, so tier 0 stone, copper, bronze, so it'll tell you all the tiers there and how they all work, and then the anvil game is explained here. And yeah, we just tell you, so you have to have your metals up to temperature for working or for welding together. And then you get bonuses if you make your tools in the anvil, but I still don't think it's worth the cost for the low-level ones. Once we get up into steel, etc., then I think the bonuses are probably going to be worth it there, but just doing them at the lower levels, I don't find that is going to be so beneficial there. So we need a raw piece of rock that is of the igneous intrusive type: rhyolite, basalt, andesite, or dacite. Thankfully, I was in a basalt biome, and I have access to these basalt rocks, right here. So I just broke myself off a raw piece, And we... is my offhand messing that up? Why is that not working? Oh, the derps, right? We could use granite as well, but basalt should work. Simply right-click the exposed top face of the raw block and we'll get an anvil. Oh, there we go. Not shift and right-click, which is what I was doing, but just right-clicking. That'll get us our anvil. In here we can see all of the things. We won't be able to do any plans just yet, but with all of this copper that I've gathered, I'll be melting up all of those, making the ingots, and then we'll have to weld together 7, so we'll need 14 copper ingots to be able to make our first copper anvil. And then from the copper anvil, then we'll be able to get ourselves the double ingots for making the bismuth bronze, or well, for me it'll be black bronze because that's what I have for right now. And then get into working on getting towards the raw iron, which will be the next level up there. So that's the plan for moving forward and what I plan on doing once we get for the rest of this fall pretty much. I will have to chop down a lot of this wood here so that I can get a lot more charcoal going, because as of right now I have just a paltry stack, just 32, and that's not going to last very long at all when we start using our charcoal forge. But just note that when we are working, when we do start getting into heating up our ingots in here for forging together, you'll want to keep either some ingot molds over here in the forge or a small vessels, because if we heat our ingots up too much and they melt, then we lose them altogether if we don't have a place to catch the liquid once it finishes melting. So that I just wanted to go over that. And oh yes, the last thing to go over is the thing we need for welding items together, which is, why can't I think of it off of the top of my head right now? I just was thinking of it, but no, it's, do we make it with the basalt? No. We make it with, I already grabbed a whole bunch of it because I knew I was going to need it, dolomite. Flux. So you can use your hammer to break down dolomite into flux, or we can put the dolomite on our kiln. And where'd my dolomite go now? Put that back in there and then click on the handle, and we can grind it up that way. So those are the two ways that we can get the flux that we need to start welding together the ingots so that we can get our next tier of anvil and do all of that fun stuff there. So I've only got 6 there, so I'm going to obviously need one more because we need 7. But yeah, now that I've got the flux there, we just put the flux in this slot here, and once we have our 2 copper ingots up to the proper temperature where it tells us that we can weld them, we just put them on there, and then we right click it with the hammer. It might even be a shift right click with the hammer to weld them together to get your double ingot to move forward with that progression there. So that is it for this episode here. I'm low on food, so got a little bit of bread left over here. And oh yes, I do have to remember to keep feeding my sheep. So if we crouch, we can see the heart there. as well as in the tooltip we can see the familiarity, but if you crouch and feed them, then that's how you get the familiarity going up. Once they get familiar enough, then we can use shears to shear them to start getting string that way, rather than relying on actually killing killing spiders to get string. And once we have the sheep wool, we're going to need one of these spindles. Spindle head is just, you have to make it out of clay and fire it up to get the spindle head. That's just how you make it there. But yeah, once you have the spindle, then you take the wool that you get from shearing the sheep, and that transforms it into yarn, which is what we can then use the yarn with leather armor to get the insulated clothing. So this will help us stay away from heat sources in the winter a little bit longer. And just to note that the insulated goes in our bauble slots over here, so that we don't actually have to take up these slots there. The next episode we'll make some barrels and we'll go over leather recipes, because I still haven't killed any animals except for those first couple of wolves, so I don't have a lot of the raw hides just yet, but the process is pretty simple. You just need a barrel, you got to get lime water, which is just flux. You put flux into regular water, and each piece of flux will make 500, a half a bucket go into there. And then let's go back to here. Once we get the soaked hide, we scrape it to get scraped hide. Then we soak the scraped hide to get the prepared hide, which we then put in with tannin to get leather, and this is the stuff that we're going to need to progress to getting to iron, because with the leather we need to make a bellows right here to be able to increase the heat level of our forge to high enough to be able to melt down the iron. So that's the progression for iron there. I think that's enough for this episode here, so I appreciate you all for checking it out, and we will see you in the next one.